Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Dark Pixel Podcast. I'm Mike, joined with
Landon
and
Kaysen.
I don't know if we have to do that every time. Do they do that every time?
We should. There's always going to be new people.
Every single time.
A lot of people will just be listening. Maybe not right now, but at some future point.
All right. Well, every time you get to know our names. Today we're talking about a lot of different topics. First of all, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy disease. That was a term that the director of the game talked about. It was influencing the way that the developers in the studio were approaching developing the game. It was causing a lot of turmoil. We'll be talking about this rumored Nintendo MH, which is apparently the next handheld console for Nintendo. I didn't hear about this till today. It's crazy. Battleborn, which is what would you call it, an arena shooter that's come out just before Overwatch and how it's been struggling since the release of Overwatch. The new Star Trek trailers for the TV show and the new movie coming out. Netflix is getting an exclusive deal with Disney to be like the sole streaming source, I guess, where you can watch Marvel movies and Disney movies and stuff, and Star Wars is included in that, so that's crazy. Batman Return to Arkham. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There was a trailer that went up that showed the differences in the remastered version from the original. We have a lot to say about that. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of the response to Reddit criticism that we received for a recent video. So, okay.
We'll just dive right into it.
Final Fantasy disease. What's Final Fantasy disease, guys?
So, Final Fantasy disease is the idea that whatever Final Fantasy you entered the series at is what you think all of Final Fantasy should be. Is that more or less correct? And this specific disease isn't in reference to the players, although it is obviously applicable,
players,
but it's specifically referencing the developers of the games and how all of these different developers have come on to Square at different points. And when people come in and say, hey, let's go back to basics, let's take the series back to where it used to be, that means something completely different to each different programmer and developer and artist and everyone that they've brought on through the past 20 years. So it's kind of a problem. And so I think it's been an issue for the director specifically as he's trying to get things back to what he believes Final Fantasy should be. But his terminology doesn't exactly resonate because when he says things like that, everyone has a different idea of what that should be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's the same way even with, fans who play the game who they think Final Fantasy needs to go back to what they consider the roots, which is the first one they played.
Now, what you would assume when they say, let's go back to the roots, the consensus assumption should be, the first one. Let's go back to the first one. But nobody actually wants to go back to the first one. The first one isn't deemed... I mean, it helped, Square to still be a company in the mid-'80s, I guess. But no one's talking about 1. Everyone's like, back what? Everyone thinks like, 4 or 6 or 7 or 10 even. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
so
a lot
different.
of people, 10 was their first, and that is so different from what it was before that. It's crazy.
Specifically, Tetsuya Nomura came on for Final Fantasy IV as creature designer.
Yeah.
And that is considered to be one of the better Final Fantasies. So it's like, to him, that's taking it back to basics.
I think in a lot of ways, actually, they created this problem for themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
People who make games, they tend to hype up whatever the newest game is. It's the greatest. Yep. It's the epitome of what the whole franchise is supposed to be every time.
Yep, the newest one is always what it was always meant to be.
Yeah, or we're taking it a new direction. This is what it's supposed to be at this point in time. And they've always done that. And so it makes it a little bit difficult because every time you're like, if you're going to do something different every time, but say this is the greatest of them all, then you're telling people this is better than what we've done before.
This is Final Fantasy,
and that this direction is what it should be now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a marketing hype that kind of like gets the wires crossed, I think, a little bit.
Mike had a good point, though, talking about how Final Fantasy is supposed to be different every time.
Oh, yeah.
But that gets confusing when you're talking about back to basics, but it's supposed to be new and different and completely original, but back to basics somehow.
That's what Hironobu Sakaguchi would always talk about in interviews. He'd always talk about challenging himself, challenging the team, doing something that hasn't been done before. And, you know, when... There's a freaking loud sound outside.
Hopefully you guys can't hear that.
When you do that, you know, it keeps things fresh and you have new ideas. This is the guy mowing the lawn right now.
Yeah, he's right outside the window.
He had to pick right now to do this. Okay, sorry, got off track. You can go one way or the other. It can go like, you know, Final Fantasy 1 is released, and it's more or less a traditional, well, it borrows a lot of concepts from Dragon Warrior, which was like sort of Japan's version of a tabletop RPG system in a video game. And Final Fantasy kind of borrowed a lot of concepts. They did things different aesthetically, but from a gameplay standpoint, it's very, very similar. And then in Final Fantasy 2, they just totally changed the whole thing. Like, level progression was not traditional at all. You had to, like, get your characters proficient with each different type of weapon. You gained HP and defense by taking hits in battle. You made your spells stronger by using them. Like, it was a just 180 degree totally different game. And the ideas were pretty good, but it didn't like really take hold, right? But okay, so instead of going back to what was successful the first time, they create this ridiculously robust class changing system in the next one, right? So he never ever wanted to play it safe. With Final Fantasy IV, it was like, now we're going to get into really trying to tell a detailed plot.
I think 4 is kind of the birth of what we consider like 4, 5, 6 kind of follow a more or less similar style of game, right?
Yeah, well, 5 kind of reverted back from that, because 4 was all the characters have a set class.
Right.
But, you know, you then pick the character for their abilities, right?
Yeah.
But then 5 is back to class changing again. Then 6 goes back to but it's more of a, you know, story driven thing. So every single time, and then when 7 came out, it was like, oh, an entirely different setting. So was 6, I guess, but the point is that his philosophy was always like, we are going to challenge ourselves, and we're not ever going to release a game that can be considered the same or too similar to the previous one. We're always going to push it forward in some way. And I don't know if that really changed per se, because each Final Fantasy game has been pretty radically different from the one before, even into the modern era, even up to 13. But from what I've read in interviews, it seems like the developers on the team got complacent with the fact that, oh, we're making Final Fantasy. We're like the top developers here in the company. Yeah. We're really, really great. We're a special team. Yeah. And I guess according to them, they stopped challenging themselves in the same way. And so when Tabata, the current director of 15, went to meet with Sakaguchi to talk with him, that's what he kept saying to himself. You have to challenge yourself. I'm always challenging myself, and so that's kind of been like the whole root of his direction on this game, is we are going to push ourselves and challenge ourselves and really, really try and do something different than anyone expects. But part of doing that for him was getting the team on a unified idea of what this game should be, and all of them had a different idea, because all of them had a different favorite one, or a different one that they were introduced to the series with. And so everybody was kind of discordant, I guess, with how this game should be made. And again, I don't have a lot of sources for this stuff. I know some of you guys do. You give me sources all the time, but apparently a lot of this discord within the team was from kind of a lack of not a lack of vision, but a lack of communication about the vision from Tetsuya Nomura, who was developing it or directing the game before they moved him off the team. So that's why it's taken 10 years to make the game.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's obviously gone through phases of Final Fantasy versus 13 or something, and then it's kind of become 15. And Tetsuya Nomura, being the director, obviously has his own very grand ideas for what he wanted to do with it. I never heard this whole back to basics or return to the original until recently, just the past few months. So that makes me wonder, I don't think Nomura had any interest in going back to basics. He'd wanted to make something crazy and just cool and whatever his ideas were, right? It's kind of like, it almost seems like it's a marketing thing more or less at the moment.
Yeah,
although it may possibly actually be that they're really trying to do that. Who's to say? But they didn't ever talk about it. They've been developing this game for 8 years now, or 7 or 6 years. I don't know when.
It was announced in 2006. So
2006. So they've been developing this game for almost 10 years, and all of a sudden now they're like, oh, by the way, it's back to what you guys are used to. I don't know. I feel like obviously this new director, that was probably his ideas of hey, let's slow down here. Yeah. But I can't. I think
their market research has told them this is what they have to do right now, or they're screwed.
If they want it to succeed.
They're saying things like, "Oh, if this one doesn't succeed, will Final Fantasy?"
Which
is almost
Final
a
Fantasy
fear tactic to me. It's almost like you guys better buy this,
or we won't make any more.
Games. But it brings up an interesting side point in that this type of situation rarely exists in the film industry. When you look at what Final Fantasy is, where it's we're going to make a series of games that are going to be not really connected to each other. They might share some plot elements and gameplay elements and things, some character names, but for the most part, they'll be completely different games. In the film industry, you would not have a recurring title. These would just be their own separate movies entirely.
Right.
The exception to that would be what they're doing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, maybe something like Harry Potter, but those, and Harry Potter specifically, the whole thing was created first. This whole thing that couldn't be done as one movie, so it was broken up.
Right.
That is not the case with Final Fantasy, right? Or The Legend of Zelda. That's not the case with Legend of Zelda. It's not. So what they do is they create a thing to establish a set of expectations. You can have recurring characters or whatever that way, but it's almost like guiding the consumer towards, hey, because normally people aren't aware what team made what company made what, other than maybe the publisher. So it's like it was a technique implemented to me for those purposes, but the side effect of it is people start expecting things from that because you're putting the same title on it.
Right.
So if you're going to go see a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, you're going to have certain types of expectations, but
Ant-Man would have gone nowhere other than people knew, oh, this is Marvel.
Right.
Okay, now I'm interested, because even though most people had never even heard of Ant-Man before. It's a weird concept, and it's going to be totally different from everything, but it's Marvel. Oh, sweet. Now I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, it allows them to build up some marketing steam, some marketing hype, and then, I can't wait for the next Final Fantasy, right? And people start looking forward to, you're doing a series of these ongoing. Okay, cool. I'm prepping myself for the next one already. It's just not something you usually see in film or pretty much anything else, unless it's already an established, we got this whole thing already. In books, you could have that, but but games, they're full of this, there are all these series, Call of Duty, right? It's an ongoing thing.
They don't care to maintain characters that are the same person. They don't feel the need to do that because it's not an actor. It's all just.
Yeah, and that might be part of the reason why they can do this with games, is because you don't need to have this one actor or certain people or whatever available all the time. But it's just weird, because video games have done this since the very beginning.
Yeah, that's true.
Not just sequels, but literally this is a series of games that might be not necessarily following a continuous story, but this is this type of game, and then they make a different game.
And just to clarify one point, because I was confused about this as well with the way they sort of put it in that unveiling event when they said we're going back to our Challenger roots. What they meant by that was that the spirit of development is what they want to return to. This idea that we're going to really push ourselves. I don't think that they have any intention to necessarily go back to the roots of
like
the way the story are told,
course,
or the way the game is played. But they want their development team to have the mindset that they used to have when they made what are considered some of the best games.
Which is an unusual thing to make a public statement about. You know what I mean? It's unusual. So. What that means is everyone knows what's wrong with your company.
Right. Yeah. In fact, people have been talking about it for a decade now. People know that Square Enix is very troubled, specifically when it comes to Final Fantasy.
And you have to come out and say, oh, guys, we had a meeting about this. We had a meeting about this. We told our people, got to do it like, you know. Yeah. Which is weird. You wouldn't hear. I mean, Pixar has run into some problems with some films lately.
Yes, yeah, they've had this similar thing.
You don't hear like the internal goings on. They don't. That's not part of their marketing for the next movie. Like, guess what, guys? We had a meeting at Pixar and we all decided.
And
guess what?
We had a disease, but now we're good.
Right. It's just weird. It's weird. It really is weird.
It's very strange.
Well, and I think it is indicative of a problem that they've had for a while that they've been trying to sort out, but it's taken like this, going to this extreme and making it public. Like, we had a problem. We're on the right track now in order to gain the trust of their.
It's like they're
because you have to acknowledge what everyone's been talking about this whole time, anyways.
Yeah,
they're finally just admitting it. Like, fine, you guys are right.
They had to become part of Final Fantasy Anonymous. You know, they have to have their
the 7-step program.
Yeah, to get back to what they were doing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think they're obviously a fairly mysterious company, you know, in like what their exact process is, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously lately has seemed to be more like create sweet art and then figure out how to connect it all.
Oh yeah, because that first trailer they released for Final Fantasy 13 back at the same time, 2006, they had this whole sequence that they built, action sequence. And there was not a story to go with that. They had character designs, they had a trailer, and they had no story. Or really any idea of how the game would play.
Yeah. Which tells you that they probably had even less done on Versus 13.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this actually, talking about Tetsuya Nomura again, this is how he ran Kingdom Hearts. It's been said multiple places, in multiple interviews, that they got a lot of concepts together and just, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I like that artwork. And they put it all together in the game before they even had an idea for the game yet. And so then they had to build their story weaving around these completely crazy ideas. But, oh, that was cool. So we're keeping it. We'll figure out how it works.
That's an interesting point, because when you look at any art book for any video game or movie, you can see a progression. You can see where, oh, they were going to do this and they abandoned that. They were going to do this and then it became something else that was still there but in a different form or whatever. So I feel like most productions have a stage where that type of stuff happens.
Yeah,
oh, I like
where
this.
It's like everyone
like this.
just throw ideas.
But it's almost like it's on the director to does this work or not. And I know people give Nintendo so much crap about this type of stuff, especially with the latest Legend of Zelda. Right. But back when Shigeru Miyamoto was directing those games, he'd do the whole what they called flipping the T table up into the T table, where they'd have all this stuff done and set and whatever, and they'd show it to him or some other higher up, and they'd be like, nope, start completely over. And it's basically that whole... In fact, there's an arcade game in Japan where you could up in the T table. It had a little table and sticking out, and then there would be a bunch of people just like going nuts in a room being annoying, and you just and just you try and flip as hard as you could, and all this stuff would fall in the room. But yeah, that's what they said their process was, and I think it means your games are going to take longer to develop, but that you'll have a better product in the end. But it seems that Square Enix's problem lately has been their games are taking a long time to develop, not because they're upending the T table.
Yeah, they're afraid to do that. They're just stacking the T table.
And maybe they did. I mean, they probably did that to some degree with Final Fantasy 15, right? Obviously, it was something else. They had a different director.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah,
somebody came in and flipped it all.
They've actually removed a prominent character from the Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailers.
Oh, no way.
They had this girl that everyone was very interested in what her relationship was going to be with the main character, and it looked like it was going in one direction with the story, and that is completely 100% different from the new story.
That actually leads into something I've been thinking about lately ever since I saw the event. It's like every character is a guy in this game.
Right.
Every playable character that they've shown. So it leads me to believe, are they hiding something that you'll find out as you play the game, or is it really these four guys?
Right. Which is fine, but in Final Fantasies, obviously, there are almost always female playable characters.
I know there's like supposed to be a theme of brotherhood and whatever, and maybe that's why.
Right.
But it's an unusual choice to me. I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe a surprise character that you would run across in the third act or something like that. I don't know. I've been thinking about that, though.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That is a good point. And I haven't played the game, any of the demos or anything, and I don't know exactly how the battle system works, but it seems like it's a party of 4 versus 3, like they usually do. And it's just those
Which
three,
I like
those three guys
really
that accompany or like our bodyguards of some sort of friends or whatever of the main character. But I think the story is that they're traveling. It's almost like what do you call it? A bachelor party, though.
Yeah,
because
that's what
he's
about.
On the way to get married, so he's there with his like friends.
So there is a girl. Yeah. Assuming he's marrying a woman, and there is presumably
you do see
a girl.
her in the trailer. she faces Leviathan. If you've seen that screenshot where she's standing and Leviathan's like wrapping up and like coming at her, she's got like a staff.
I have seen that. I remember that now.
She's his betrothed, and I think that she's going to be a prominent character in the game, but I don't know if she'll be a playable character or someone who fights or something like that.
I have a great idea on what they should do. This girl, she's like up in a tower or something, and there's a dragon, and then the guys have to go like save her.
Does she have long hair and a pointy hat?
Yes,
that she wears.
Very much so.
Anyone actually
she's
ever
a very
wear
prominent
those
character.
hats?
She doesn't do anything, but
I just think it's weird because has there been a Final Fantasy game with an all-male playable cast?
It's been an all-female cast in 10-2.
Right. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're like,
let's balance it. But I don't know. I mean, aside from the first one or two, I don't know that you really knew. I
guess it's pretty ambiguous for those early ones, But that's anyways interesting. Square Enix, an interesting company. We'll see what
the disease though. Final Fantasy disease. I think it comes a lot from changing directors, and just the new director has probably had a difficult time getting things where he wants it.
Yeah, it's like when there's a new president, right? In the U.S., when a new president comes in,
the whole vision changes.
Well, and they blame the previous president for everything. No, it's that guy's fault. It's because of this. Even though maybe that's not true, but it's an easy way, I think, to change gears and get everything on your
let everyone know that however you were doing it is not how it's still going to be done.
Weird. Alrighty, well, Nintendo MH.
Dude, what the fetch is this?
This was surprising to me because the rumors have always been that the NX is going to be like a hybrid mobile.
Yeah.
Now the MH is in Nintendo's new mobile. Is the NH that different from the NX, or is the MH just the NX's handheld version?
My theory is Nintendo is working with Capcom very closely to make a Monster Hunter exclusive console. Only Monster Hunter games will ever be released on this console. That actually could sell in Japan.
Like, do we know the source of who reported this originally? The MH?
Originally, I do not know.
It was some sort of... Was it an investor or...
I saw it on Facebook, but...
Or, I mean, the person who, told the press about this. Because it just, completely, to me, changes everything now. If this is true, if this thing is actually going to be Nintendo's next handheld console, then what is the NX? I no longer know.
I want to put up this picture, but there's an Ars Technica article showing an artist concept of the mysterious MH portable. It's a freaking N64 portable mod thing that somebody's made. It's not going to be totally that. Where did they get that from?
Where did they get that image? That's
or a hacked together portable N64. Yeah, probably because it has an N64 cartridge sticking out of the top. Anyways, total side.
Gosh.
I'll have to show you guys that.
Was this like a NeoGAF thing, or is this like a real...
This is saying... There's an analyst at Mitsubishi UFJ, Morgan Stanley. So it appears to be an analyst as the source of this. So somebody must have some contact that they're not...
the article's in Japanese.
Yeah, but that's what they're saying there.
Okay.
So, weird. I don't know.
And that, along with the new president... his statements about it not being the successor of the Wii U makes this whole thing so confusing to me. This is a new way to play games. It's almost like we're just launching a new product line that's separate from our home console line.
is honestly, oh man, it's probably not it. But if it were something like a phone, I could see why they would be saying that. You know what I mean? It's it's like, oh, no, this isn't the same thing.
Or whatever.
Whether that's the MH or the NX, or they're not doing a phone. People have been thinking Nintendo might do a phone for a long time.
I would love Nintendo to do a phone. I would.
The tricky thing with a phone, what do you call it? The product cycle with a phone is like 2 years.
Right.
With any model of phone.
Yeah.
Nobody goes to the store and gets a phone that's 2 years old
2 years,
for anything more than basically free, right? With your contract.
Right.
So
it's all.
Yeah. Plus phones are expensive, right? When you compare how much a console is when it launches, especially a Nintendo console,
right.
A phone, like a brand new high end phone, is $600.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot. A lot of money. That's a tougher sell for, I think, most people.
Yeah.
Phones, the market's already saturated too, you know?
Yeah.
That's true. If they take advantage of the existing fact that everyone already has a phone. But the funny thing about Nintendo's target audience is that they're, well, I mean, it's everybody, but for the most part, they have to gear towards a family audience, which usually means catering towards children. Mm-hmm. And the one kids demographic that does not have a phone. Phones, I mean, I know kids are getting phones younger and younger lately, but like, you know, Nintendo wants like 5 to 10-year-olds playing their games, and those kids don't have phones, so you can't rely on that stuff.
Like, if those previous rumors, which I think were debunked, I'm pretty sure, but the previous rumors about it streaming.
Oh, that whole thing.
If that were true,
that was based on their patent.
I could see them having something where it's like, this will stream from your home, so when you're out and about, you tap into the online service. There's latency issues and stuff with that.
Of course,
a lot of reasons why nobody has done that yet.
Because Xbox One was supposed to be capable of doing that, but
the PlayStation 4 has you can play on your Vita.
Oh yeah, they have that compatibility.
But I could see them coming out with another handheld that didn't depend on that functionality. Right. So it's still confusing to the consumer.
Crazy though.
I thought the NX was going to serve as both. It's like this is going to be something you play at home
handheld?
and on the go.
Mm-hmm.
And that everything that everyone was reporting pointed to that being what it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this changes that completely. And the president's statements change that completely for me. It's like this is not meant to replace the Wii U, but you're not going to be developing Wii U software after this year.
Yeah.
So it has to be. It doesn't make any sense.
They have to just be saying that to keep Wii U sales from completely tanking.
Or was it? Or he wants to leave the Wii U behind. Like, oh, no, this has nothing to do with the Wii U. Kind of like in
distancing.
an image. Yeah. But where in reality, it's your next console. It's
or if that was like a roughly translated thing where he's just trying to say that the Wii and the Wii U are not going to have a third
Wii U
line.
A Wii W.
Okay.
If that's what he means by it's not a Wii U
or
successor.
maybe it won't have a screen on the controller, meaning there won't ever be backwards compatibility with the Wii U.
So it won't be a successor in that sense.
Which I've actually thought about. If the next Nintendo handheld isn't a dual screen either, how do they handle backwards compatibility from that point? If it's a big enough screen, you can nest them, I guess.
Yeah.
But all those patents for controllers had a screen on the controller. And that would make sense if it was a mobile device. Like if you were to take it with you, it would make sense to have a screen on the controller.
This takes me back to when the Wii U was first launched and we saw it, and they didn't show what the console looked like, but they only showed the controller.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I got the impression from it that it was the controller, which I think is cool, right? I think that's kind of what everyone was hoping it was, or that the console was just a little thing you had to plug in to stream,
right?
To TV or something.
Like a Chrome TV or like
like Chromecast
Apple
or
TV,
something
like that.
I don't
know.
There are no real solid, reliable clues or sources to go on here. But if it's true,
no idea, and Nintendo's not going to be telling us anytime soon.
If this MH thing is true, then it means they're still moving forward the way they always have.
Yeah, there will be one.
They've always had a mobile
and one console.
and a home console. So, what the heck?
I don't know, man.
They also said. I think they were also saying that the Nintendo DS was not like the next Game Boy back when the DS came out.
Yeah, they were.
They were saying, the DS
it was like a third pillar.
Is not going to replace the Game Boy. It's not the successor. But then they stopped making Game Boys and now they make DS. Like it is. It totally.
I wonder if that's their way of testing the market a little bit. Because if the DS had tanked, they could save face. They could say,
right?
Yeah,
we're making another game.
They could say that
like if the Virtual Boy had been the next Super Nintendo,
The weird thing about them doing it here is that they have nothing to save face about. The Wii U is already kind of not a successful console for them. So it's like, this isn't before it's like Game Boy is our pillar,
really
our one thing that makes all of our money really towards hardware. And it's like, we're making DS. Don't worry, Game Boy's not going away, but the DS was as successful or more so. So they were like, oh, never mind.
Okay, now the Game Boy is going away. So the fact that they've done that before leads me to think that it's just going to be so different that they don't want people to be thinking Wii U when the NX is announced, because it's just going to be so different from the Wii U. And who knows how?
Who knows?
But that's what they're hyping up. They're hyping up that the NX is going to be like a totally revolutionary way to play games. And who knows what that even means. It's probably
to
going
be completely honest, the only concept I can see getting away with that title is something that involves like really, really good haptic feedback. Like tactile sensation of on-screen buttons.
As long as I can feel the button without pushing it.
Yeah, like you can feel like it's there.
Yeah.
It's a screen, but
you're not pushing it.
You feel the button.
Until you push.
Like outside of that, it's just going to be another Wii U controller that's portable. Not really that different. There's already VR stuff with Wii controllers, essentially.
It probably won't be
unless they're doing that. People are already doing that.
Yeah.
I just don't see where the heck. Anyways, weird.
It's crazy. Anyways, let us know your thoughts. Maybe they'll
go off on that forever.
Nintendo won't be talking about that again for a while, so hopefully somebody digs up some more.
I think they're supposed to unveil the NX at Tokyo Game Show, which is in September. So we'll see then.
That's
in news that we actually know things about, we actually have data about. Battleborn is an arena shooter that came out a couple weeks ago. Corridor Digital made a video for them.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
I did. I forgot.
And then Overwatch came out a couple weeks later, and apparently Battleborn is not a very good game. I don't know. I haven't played it. And Overwatch is an excellent game. Also, I don't know. I haven't played it.
Yeah, none of us have played it, but it looks cool.
Well, I saw someone posted a really funny picture on Twitter. Apparently, there was like some PlayStation 2 knockoff Snow White game that was made at some point with like really crappy, really crappy animation, really crappy character models. And this person like put up the Disney Snow White cover with the PlayStation 2 Snow White cover, and they said Overwatch. Battleborn, where it's like kind of the same thing, but here's the really polished one, and here's the
sucky one.
That's
and apparently it's struggling so much that it only has like 6,000
active
users,
like at the same time,
which is like
pretty low for something
that's
brand
pretty low.
New.
Yeah, just came out, and it's of the genre, right? Of the first-person shooter genre. You've got to do better than that, because those games sell like crazy at the moment.
Battleborn was developed by who?
Gearbox, who made Borderlands 2. Yeah,
and those are really popular.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're good developers.
And that's what I had heard, was that Gearbox made Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2's current online presence is a larger population than Battleborn's online presence. Which is, you could say a few things about that. I mean, that game came out a long time ago. But then again, it came out a long time ago. Like, people are still playing the online game.
Came out a long time ago.
Right.
So,
I learned this in a Korean TV show I watched a week ago. There's a saying. They said the brightest stars. What was it? The brightest stars are the ones that shine latest. What do you say? The ones
they get bright towards the end of their life.
Yeah, the end of their lives, kind of thing. The brightest stars are the ones that are have. Anyways, the
brightest stars are the ones that are supernova.
I have to look up how they said it. Yeah, the ones that supernova. No. Anyways, point being that it's like a late bloomer idea. They're taking a while, but the brightest stars always take longer.
Okay.
So,
is that even true?
I don't know if that's true.
In here
I think a lot of the sayings in the Korean shows
they get bigger,
are not.
Right? Stars will expand as they age. So yeah, weird.
Yeah, good luck to them. I mean, I hope it works, but honestly, I've seen the promo material and I've watched some like beta footage, and Overwatch looks
better. Overwatch is phenomenal.
There is to say.
Okay, Overwatch has they've been working on it for forever. This is
This is
Blizzard's first new IP
about.
in 17 years.
Holy crap!
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Everything else has been a sequel of the Warcraft stuff, StarCraft stuff.
That's crazy, man.
Hearthstone even is a Warcraft.
It's a Warcraft thing. Yeah.
So that's going to be a big deal. They're a huge company.
And they take a long time. They polish their games. Like, they don't release, half finished games. So.
Yeah. In that way, they're
going to be good.
Yeah. So they hire talent that's like Pixar animation level talent, right? These people, they're just some of the best in the entire industry.
Yep.
Battleborn, I heard, was kind of riding the Overwatch hype wave.
So it was never meant to overtake it.
They started working on it later, and their marketing budget was not like ever designed to compete with Overwatch. It was more designed to be like, this is basically Overwatch, and you can play it a month before Overwatch.
Yeah, a month before. So that, like,
maybe it's been a success then.
Maybe it's outdone their wildest dreams.
That was the whole point of it.
6,000 players.
But they cut the price from $60 to $40 the day that Overwatch launched.
Yeah, that leads me to believe that that's true. Then that their entire point was let's throw a game together that can come out right before when everyone's excited for this thing, and then we'll undercut them right when they release, so that
that's
horror
like the
people will just
those movies, those. What was that Hobbit?
Yes.
Something of the Hobbits. The
Island of the Hobbits or something.
Yeah, those movies that are made right at the time as a major tentpole.
Here you go. Here's one.
Hollywood film.
Transmorphers.
Came
out the same time as Transformers.
Yeah, and they try to they put them all in the red boxes, and I think what they're trying to do is trick people who aren't as savvy about it, maybe older people or whatever, into getting something that they think is this. But it's actually not. Now, that's obviously not the case here. It's not called overclock or something. Overclock. Similar kind of idea.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which I have less sympathy for that, if that's really what they were trying to do. That it didn't do very well because
it's tough. Yeah.
But
it's tough to say. It's obviously not the same caliber, but
right.
Yeah, I mean those shorts, because they've been releasing those animated shorts for Overwatch for I think over a year now.
They look really cool.
They're phenomenal.
They're really good. Yeah,
they're amazing. The animation is incredible. They're all paced well. They're like these really captivating stories.
Yeah,
it's interesting to me how Team Fortress sort of piloted that.
Totally.
Team Fortress. Every time they I don't know that much about Team Fortress to be honest, but
when they
introduce a new
character or a new weapon or whatever, they do this little cinematic, and it was all
showcase a character in the game.
Yeah, really, really well put together, really well animated.
Yeah, they totally.
Overwatch is take that to the next level.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And what's crazy is how many characters there are in Overwatch and how well designed they all are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a massive quantity of characters that are incredibly unique from each other. So, anyways, sorry, Battleborn.
Yeah, good luck.
And if we're way off base with this background, if they're not as much of a knockoff as we think they are, but I'm pretty sure they are. Sorry, any Gearbox employees are watching this.
Oh yeah, apologies to that whole thing.
Let's know.
You know their whole studio launches every podcast.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so Star Trek has released just within the last few days a teaser trailer for their new television series and a full trailer, the second full trailer for the Beyond film.
Yeah.
A lot of people were really upset with the first trailer for Beyond.
Yeah.
And I think rightly so. It had a very strange tone that does not in any way, shape, or form resemble the spirit of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I think it is especially egregious to fans of classic Star Trek who are not happy with the new directions of the film.
Which
Star Trek is a very noble franchise, and to portray it as
just a pure
because they have the director of Fast and Furious,
film.
right? They have
Justin Lin.
Yeah, Justin Lin, who's a great director. And I feel like the people with that first trailer were like, "Oh, we're gonna play this up to the people who like Fast and Furious."
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
And that was a mistake. It's like putting Kanye West music in Assassin's Creed.
It's exactly like that. It makes so many weird choices people make with, and a lot of video games do this. And I feel like there must be some data that exists somewhere where it's like, we got to throw some modern remix of some classic song or some popular music right now, some pop culture icon's new song into our game trailer, regardless of the subject matter of that game, and whether or not that contemporary piece of music would fit. They all do it. All of them. Assassin's Creed's been doing it for years. It's the marketing
teams that put these trailers together.
They do.
And like
that's their thing.
It's fetching stupid. Call of Duty's been doing that for a long time. Even this Battlefield trailer that came out for Battlefield 1, it did that too, but people liked it better. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyways, it's so stupid to me, but that they did that for the first Star Trek trailer, and this one was more. It felt right.
What you'd expect from a Star Trek.
And that one shot of the Enterprise in warp as it's like just distorting space and creating that bubble around the ship.
Freaking cool.
Is one of the coolest visualizations of faster than light travel I've ever seen in a film.
I feel like it's where the influence of Interstellar comes in. I think ever since Interstellar, that type of stuff is going to be portrayed differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like it's always classically been what Star Wars,
right? They
with all the stars flying past you, and you see them zip.
Yep, and then you're in a blue.
I like the idea instead, because the entire idea of warp drive in Star Trek is that you're manipulating with gravity, you're bending space and time around you.
Yeah, you're traveling. It's more.
You're not
like
actually. You're not
than it is,
traveling fast, per se. You're propelling forward, but it's that you're actually bringing space and compressing it and bringing it closer to you, moving forward, then decompressing, and then that decompression of space it's all back there now behind you, right? So it's not that you're traveling fast necessarily, and I think that this captures that pretty. I mean, you still look like you have some speed.
I still don't know if it's physically accurate, but it looks really cool.
It looks awesome.
It's like water almost, just this bubbly, like, I don't know, really cool.
They've messed with that in each of the most recent Star Trek movies. The first one showed going to warp one way, and then the second one actually changed that. They left this like crystal-y dust trail when they went to warp, and they even almost changed the lens distortion effect that they did on it too. So it leads me to believe in this third one they want an even more like eye-popping way that they go into warp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really cool looking shot though.
The movies look really cool. Anytime I watch the old Star Trek, and then I think of or watch these new movies, it's just like, I don't know. I can see why, if you were a huge Star Trek fan in the 60s, 70s, and all through that you don't like these new movies. They're just action films. They're very much Star Wars heavy, and just, you know, this thing that's supposed to be a research vessel is just firing missiles at everything and just attacking all the time. And they aren't really doing much reconnaissance. They aren't doing much research. They're really just out there defending the galaxy. And I think it's awesome. I love these new movies. I can totally see it's just so different from what the TV show like ever was.
Yeah, and
it's pretty.
You know,
funny.
This is the thing for me about Star Trek is that it was always hit or miss. Even when it was at its peak on The Next Generation in popularity and became like a big pop culture thing and kind of almost revived the original series, which didn't even run for that many years. It wasn't that popular at the time it was on TV. But you'd have some episodes that were just like, that was incredibly interesting, like very intelligently written, very thought-provoking subject matter. Like, that made me really think differently about something. And then you'd have like the next episode just be the cheesiest, like weirdest, like, and sometimes just the most blatant, like, political correctness agenda thrown into there about, like, you know, you have this society, what this is like 2,400 or whatever.
20XX.
Exactly. 21XX. Really far in the future, and you're bringing in a story about, like, apologizing to the Native Americans.
Right.
I mean, literally, like, these Native Americans get, like, sent to another planet now instead of being on Earth, and then we're coming to take their colonies from another planet. Just like it's just stupid, obvious like political agenda behind that. And so Star Trek was like, when it was on, it was like so sick. When it was off, it was so bad. And for a television series, and I think Game of Thrones is actually a really great example, you can really get into this, like, the drama, the pull to the story can be all about intrigue and drama between characters and thinking about, things in a different way. Or you can have other sources of conflict rather than, oh, fetch, we're about to die and get blown away and the whole world's, in danger and we got to, like, get in there in time and make it all an action thing. But I don't know how well that works for films, and I think that's evidenced by how much the Star Trek films dropped in popularity as they went on. Like, you had a few of them, like First Contact did fairly well. Star Trek 2 did really well and is very well loved by fans. But those movies didn't make anywhere close to the amount of money that Star Trek, the
last three, or the last two.
Well, Into Darkness didn't make as much as the first one, did it?
I don't
but it's
think
still
so.
probably made a lot more
than
the ones before it.
The first reboot just blew all of the other Star Trek films out of the water.
Yeah.
And I think that when people go to see a movie, there's a different expectation than when you're watching a television series. And Star Trek was a television series. That's how it was made. And so the expectation was different. You can have different kinds of stories. There's a lot of ways you can go, and you don't have to have these huge budgets and constant action. But when someone is paying to go to a movie theater to watch a movie, it's like, I want to be impressed. I am paying money. I am leaving my house. I could get entertainment from my computer or whatever if I wanted to, but I'm coming out here taking a chance on your thing. I better be like just blown away, have all my senses anyways, you know what I mean. So I don't feel like the traditional Star Trek storytelling works for modern film audiences.
Not if you want to make 100 million plus.
Yes.
At the box office. Not if you're getting investors to fund your Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Now you can't do what the show was.
So,
but they are also doing the show now, as they just announced, which is cool. You can literally have both.
So it'll be interesting to see if they do that on the show. The show won't have the same budget, so you're not going to be able to have all the action set pieces. It won't be as action-packed, yeah. So you have to kind of dig in a little bit and create a different kind of story to make it compelling. So I imagine the show, if it's well written, will be more like traditional Star Trek. And the movies will be...
Yeah, it pretty much has to be.
More like Star Wars.
and you get to reuse a lot of set pieces that way, too. It cuts down on costs. You can build a set and use it, like, tons of times over the bridge.
They already built the set in the film, so I'm almost wondering if they're going to have some crossover, or if they're going to be completely different.
The trailer was saying new
characters,
new cast.
Right, it would...
So
it might not even be the same time period as the Kirk stuff.
And it could be a whole other timeline, like, because the first Star Trek reboot really took them into another timeline.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah. So,
which is funny. And I know they do different casts, because that would be unbelievably expensive to bring all those back on for a show. They wouldn't do it.
Yep.
Anyways, I'm excited for both.
Yeah,
and I like both approaches, so we'll see what happens.
I like that Star Trek's on CBS, so you don't have to like subscribe to HBO to watch it.
Oh, I know, right?
Watch it. It's on TV.
Talking about online services like HBO, Netflix. Yeah. More movie stuff, but they announced that starting in September, they have an exclusive online streaming deal in the United States with Disney, all the Disney properties, the Pixar, Lucasfilm, all the Marvel films, all the other Disney films moving forward. Netflix will be the only place you can watch those in the United States.
That's crazy.
So that's huge.
Crazy.
That's huge because honestly, I actually kind of ditched Netflix almost a year ago for Hulu because it was like, there wasn't that much good stuff on Netflix anymore. And if you get into a TV show, there's going to be like 20 hours of content in a season, right? Of a good TV show versus a movie. You found a good movie, and that's great, but that's
one night.
2.5 hours of stuff. So anyways, just ran out of stuff I was interested in on Netflix. But this might bring me back. I don't know.
It won't be till next year anyways, right?
I don't even know.
Starting in September.
Starting this year. Oh, wow.
I don't even know when the last time was I logged into my Netflix account. I've been paying for it for like 5 years. And I think the last time I watched something on Netflix was Cosmos when it was new.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah,
Cosmos.
I watch that on there.
That's a good show.
I go on for documentaries, I guess, the Planet Earth stuff.
That's really all I watch Netflix for, to be honest.
I watch all my Korean television and stuff on
Netflix.
Yeah.
They have Korean television shows on Netflix?
A lot of it. Well, like Secret Garden. Things, like...
that's right. We found that on Netflix.
Yeah, in fact, there's a ton. Netflix must have some deal with, like, KBS or something, because they have a ton of Korean, like, TV shows on Netflix that aren't really anywhere else, unless you go to, like, Drama Fever or something.
See, that's weird, because I feel like Hulu's the same way with Japanese anime.
Ah, they have more anime,
there's
totally.
way
Absolutely.
more anime on there,
on
Hulu than on Netflix. Way more, like, quality stuff. Netflix has, like, a weird, kind of crappy collection of anime.
Yeah, they have a few good shows, but not
very many.
Yeah, really weird stuff.
No. Yeah, so
crazy. We'll see.
That is nuts though. Like if Star Wars is on Netflix, like fetch.
And nowhere else, and all the Marvel and all the Pixar.
It reminds me of
especially since they're making so much Star Wars content now.
Yeah, that's true, huh? Yeah,
it's
going to be
on Netflix.
Yeah, wow. Star Wars marathons are going to be insane now.
Oh, totally.
I know.
People will watch the prequels and then the original trilogy.
That's
before
true
the
because the old ones will be on there too, huh? So
yeah, you could watch.
You could just sit there and
it's going to be days of stuff in just a couple of years.
Man, when
you're
we
gonna
were
get more
kids,
Star
if there
Wars
was
than
that
you can
much
handle.
Star Wars to watch, we watched the original trilogy over and over and over. And then
I remember one of the first
prequels came
times
out,
I ever like stayed the night over your guys' house in Arizona. We just watched fetching all Star Wars movies. All the original trilogy.
Was
Star
that
Wars
when
movies.
we like the next morning we woke up and we just played the pod racing game?
I'm pretty sure
on the 64.
It was a Friday night. We watched all the Star Wars movies in one night. Then we woke up, noon or whatever, and played pod racing until like 9 o'clock, and then I went home.
Oh, that's so good. Those were the days, man.
Oh my gosh,
that's so fun.
That and Rogue Squadron. I think we went.
Rogue Squadron. Oh yeah.
It's basically just an entire weekend of Star Wars.
Trying 100%.
But if they had Netflix back then, fetch.
No,
Instead of
cancel the games,
busting out all his VHS
still watching
tapes.
shows.
and rewinding them, waiting to rewind them.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Well, back to video games. That was our movie tangent, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, you guys got to see this. I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah.
Batman, the Arkham games are getting a remaster called Return to Arkham. And just recently, I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning or whatever, they released, I believe, the studio themselves released a trailer.
Official, yeah.
An official thing comparing the two. And the remastered version looks significantly worse most of the time.
In almost every shot.
Most of the time. It looks a lot worse than the original game.
And you can tell it's been treated that there's like high contrast and like high saturation.
Yeah.
And stuff that Batman's supposed to be
better.
really... Anyways, it doesn't actually look that much better. It doesn't look better
I'm
at all.
always
in fact, it looks
suspicious.
worse in a lot of ways.
Even when there are movies that come out and say this was remastered.
Yeah.
Like they redid the color grade for Fellowship of the Ring.
Fellowship,
and it was like,
And a lot of times it looks worse.
Yeah, I was like, this is different, but did you need to make it different? Games, when you need to up the texture resolutions to work in high def better, whatever, I get that.
Here's what it appears to me that they have done. Aside from in a lot of places they've changed the lighting completely, which I don't know why. The lighting was much better in the original. Like it looks like really, really well composed with every frame they're showing with the lighting and the way it's outlining the character. You got a fill light so you can see the details in their face, and you can see their eyes very well. Like it's just very well lit all the time. In the new one, it's not. Like the faces are darker. The eyes, a lot of eyes are there's no detail. They're like black.
They're literally black.
You can't see
those
you
shots.
can't fetching see their eyes, which is like the most important thing. When your character is speaking, you need to be able to see their eyes. You need to be able to see their face well, so that they can express the emotion and you can understand that. But aside from that, It appears what they've changed is that they've added motion blur, which I think is a big reason why a lot of it looks worse, is because the system is being bogged down by this motion blur. Mm-hmm. So the frame rate's bad in a lot of the shots. It's worse than the original. And
the frame rate is so choppy.
And I feel like a lot of their atmosphere effects had to be removed. So there's this one shot where you have like this light ray kind of coming through, and you have the boss sort of moving through that light, and you can see the light as it bends around him. The rays bend around him as he moves. It looks beautiful in the original. It's gone in the remastered version. And my suspicion is that it's because they've added so much motion blur to it. But they've sacrificed all of the other things that make the game look good in the original to add motion blur, which is like that's not a comparable sacrifice.
When is that coming out?
I don't know.
I didn't see.
I don't know, but in its current state, it looks really, really terrible. Yeah. And there was something else I was going to say about it. Oh, but the other thing they changed is that they appear to have, first of all, changed textures on like Batman's cape and stuff into this weird like bumpy texture grip material. Yeah. And also they've added parts to the models, like Catwoman has goggles that actually like physically wrap around her head rather than just kind of like sitting on her head.
All right.
Like those sorts of details are good, but the textures that they change don't feel right. They don't look good. They don't look better. The lighting is bad. The contrast and saturation is bad. You're missing a lot of the blending effects like smoke and like light rays and things like that helped to blend elements of the scene and give it depth and stuff. It just looks bad. It looks like objectively worse than the original game, and that is such a huge surprise. Maybe it shouldn't be. That's Warner Brothers has been in a lot of trouble lately for their incompetence with porting games to PC and things like that. But my goodness, I could not understand how a company could put that and be like, we're going to compare the superior version that we did before with the inferior version we're doing now and expect you to buy the new one. I'm shocked that nobody stepped up and said, guys, this is going to hurt.
So that was one thing we weren't able to determine was that running on a PS4, was it running on Xbox One, or was it on PC? Because if it was running on PC with the frame rate issues, I'd give them a little more slack just because, maybe that PC wasn't optimized for whatever. But if it's running on a console and has frame rate issues, you can't upgrade your console. You know what I mean? Like, how would games come out with frame rate issues on PC, but if they have, but you could upgrade your hardware, right?
Right.
But on console,
but why would they,
that's really
in
strange.
Their office, not have the best PCs available?
Because that was like their own freaking
that was
game.
Like 20 frames per second footage. I feel
or
like,
even less.
Sometimes it felt 15. Less.
So it's like. Yeah. If it's 20 frames per second on a console, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's no one who's going to be playing that at a higher frame rate.
No.
I can't believe they put it out. It's just weird. Like that they thought, I mean, just put out the game and let somebody else make the comparison footage. Don't do it yourself because no one's going to buy this now. This is like official and it's awful.
Again, the link to this video will be in the description. Watch it. It's baffling. It's honestly baffling to me how they put this out themselves as a marketing thing, thinking that people would think that. At first, we were thinking they were reversed because it's weird that they have the remastered version on the left side of the screen and the original on the right, and usually it's always the other way around.
Yeah, you're supposed to see the crappy one first, then the right.
Then
it's like a progression. Like,
and we were like, did they accidentally put original here and remastered here? Like, but no, like it's pretty clear in terms of like the detail, the textures and stuff, which is on the left side. Yeah, that's the remastered version, and it looks a lot worse than the original.
That was also the version where the light would bloom. They get light wraps a little bit and things that like Okay, I can see some slightly more advanced
things motion blur was on the left side.
Yeah, the motion blur and that
the worst frame rate.
And the worst frame rate. And it's crazy. I can't believe it.
That was mind blowing.
Makes me think there was like a deadline and they were like, it just has to go up today. All right, fine.
Okay, I guess I'll go today.
So some intern was like, "You'll see. You'll be sorry. Fine.
And then they got fired. So if you're that intern,
I told you,
because I'm sure you watch our podcast too.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone does.
Hottest podcast in the internet.
We're sorry, but we'd like to offer you a job.
Hey, we like the first games. We like the originals.
Oh man.
Okay, one last thing.
Yeah, final topic. Okay, so we had a new Lost in Translation video that went up Sunday, early Sunday morning, our time at least. It was a scheduled upload. I had it done like at midnight on Saturday, and was like, this is a bad time for everybody.
Right.
So we scheduled the upload, so it went up early Sunday morning, and somebody, I don't know who, somebody who watches the channel shared it on Reddit, which we're very, very thankful for. That happens occasionally, and it's funny on Reddit when you're not supposed to share your own stuff, really.
Right.
So anytime like we've tried to share something we've made, it just doesn't
go anywhere.
Nobody cares. But somebody shared that newest Lost Translation, and so that's why it got a lot more traction than the other ones have in the past. And so it was really interesting to watch the progression of it, because anytime you get an outside traffic source, and we see this on our main Dark Pixel channel a lot,
all the time.
You notice more dislikes, a higher ratio of dislikes coming in, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not people who like your stuff already. They're new people that are maybe looking at it more, looking for something to pick apart. Yes. So on Reddit at first it was like not too many more dislikes, but then there was somebody who made a comment, and they were kind of picking apart the video, and then there was just like a flood of dislikes that came in after that, and it's really like I don't know what it's at now.
It's a total bandwagoning kind of thing,
right?
Like, if somebody pointed something out as a criticism, and in the moment it makes sense to me, I need to therefore now hate on this video.
Go thumbs down the video.
It's almost as if you should put at the beginning of your videos or in the description or somewhere something saying like, I have been studying Japanese for years. I lived in Japan for years. Like establishing yourself as more like some joker who watches anime doesn't think that they can discredit you.
Or even in a subtle way at the beginning, saying, when I was living in Japan, and I was in this area, and I was speaking with this person, they said this thing to me.
Yeah.
And it's like you've already set yourself up as somebody who lived there and spoke with people and comprehended what they said.
Right.
Like, say, when I stood on the bridge that Yoshitsune, this whole thing happened.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. That's
there.
true, because I have been there.
That adds legitimacy to what you said.
I think it does, and it's just funny because, I don't know, I feel like the types of people who are picking you apart are definitely less qualified to talk about Japan.
Okay, so what's weird to me is, like, yes, I'm not like your typical person who is into Japanese culture that lives in the United States because of all kinds of reasons. Right. But at the same time, I don't think the people that are using that as a criticism is just not a valid criticism. Like, I don't care why somebody... I don't care if they're a weeaboo or whatever the heck they call them.
I hate... I cannot stress enough to you how much I hate the word weeaboo, waifu, all this... You know, it is like... It's the same as, like, cringe. Cringe is becoming, like, this new, like, buzzword on the internet. Ooh, cringe-worthy, cringy. Right. Like, these little 12-year-old fetchers that just want to go around like throwing these words as if they're derogatory. It loses its meaning entirely. It has no more substance to it. You call everything cringeworthy. You call every person who likes anime a weeaboo. You call everyone
or otaku.
It's like my fetch people, like, have an original thought for once. Criticize something based on a real point.
Yeah, well,
it infuriates me when people use those terms.
It's ironic somebody coming in saying, "Oh, you're just a weeaboo," as in like, I don't use that word. You use that word.
Yes,
the fact
you're
that
more
you even
into
use
this
that
something
word.
or other than I am. Like,
yeah,
I don't even.
You are the weeaboo here because you're into this entire conversation about weeaboos.
Yeah, like what the heck?
Fetch.
So
it's funny.
So yeah, it's. I approach it from a different perspective than most people that are into that stuff, but at the same time,
right,
like,
that's the point, though. You're bringing up something that people haven't brought up before.
Yeah, but also, yeah, just anybody who comes in criticizing anything that anybody does. If there was if one of our followers who has never been to Japan but likes Japanese stuff, tries learning about it, maybe you watch anime and you're trying to learn Japanese and you want to talk about it with people online. sweet. That's the same as anybody who's into basketball and plays basketball and wants to or follow some teams or whatever. So, yeah, it's the idea that like because someone's into this thing, they're some weirdo or their opinion is not valid.
Well, it's a fallacy.
Right.
You're establishing like if you are into this, your opinion therefore is invalid or diminished in some way.
Right.
But that's
attacking the
paradox.
As you're framing it that way without actually addressing any of the content that the person talked about.
That's the biggest.
And these kinds of fallacies are so rampant in the way we talk about anything on the internet.
Right.
That is why, for the most part, until very recently, I have stayed away from forums and online communities because nobody knows how to structure a coherent argument or criticism because they have their buzz phrases, weeaboo, cringeworthy, that they throw at everything they don't like, and they don't spend a fraction of a second having an original thought about that content.
I think something that happens really common is that like social justice warriors and people of that, general like persuasion are very often rewarded for just being just incredibly intolerant, or for people who just shut down an argument just on like a one-liner or something like that.
You're racist.
Their comments get liked and shared like crazy, and I see this all the time online. Like, oh, this person using 2 words shut down like the whole argument of whatever, or this person took down Donald Trump in just 1 sentence.
Oh yeah.
But those types of things, everyone's trying to do that. Like, I know somebody specifically who does this all the freaking time, but just like, oh, well, this is stupid, and then they'll say whatever dumb criticism that they have, but like, oh, yeah, Batman, he dresses up in a cape. Like, there you go. Batman sucks now. Like, I just proved it. I proved it to you. Like, okay, can you maybe come up with something a little better than that? But that idea is just people who identify with them or people who agree with them are just like, oh, good job. You're so right. Oh, man, that's so good. And it's just so not good at all. But this happens all the time. So anytime, like, especially on Reddit, like, people come in and, like, just mention that, oh, you might be someone who doesn't know a lot about Japan but wishes they did. Yeah. People are willing to just like, that sounds so much like what I'm used to. That sounds great.
You establish your criticism on a fallacy to begin with.
Right.
You are not actually knowledgeable about this. You're just some weeaboo anime fanboy. No one has actually confirmed this.
Right.
Someone frames it this way, and then everyone jumps on the bandwagon.
They like the frame.
And
they're like, oh, that's a good frame.
Criticizing him based on that. And I had an argument, probably 16 comment string long, trying to tell somebody, you don't know that. You have no idea who this person is. You are framing your argument on a total assumption.
Well, yeah, that guy that you're mentioning, he was like, "Oh, you're Dark Souls fanboy and doing the fanboy stuff."
Right. Yeah, your argument is he was
as
trying
if that
to say
discredits anything.
That his
like,
argument
sure, maybe he is, but why do you
was
care?
some kind of worshipping of Dark Souls, like trying to find some deep Buddhist philosophical meaning in it. Because he loves the game so much, he's trying to make it deeper than it is. And it's like
the reality is
you don't know this person. And nothing he said in the video talks about the quality of Dark Souls. It's not speaking about Dark Souls. That's not what the video is about. It's about Japanese culture. That's what the whole series is about.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be... it's just... I can't stand when people start their argument, base their entire stance on something,
on like
a fallacy
or something,
on something that has not been confirmed, that cannot be shown with evidence or with data to support it. And then they take the conversation in a direction it should never have gone in the first place. You're criticizing something that we're not even talking about here.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating to me. It's why I can't stand going into any video game community's forum and talking about a game because that's all they want to do in Fire Emblem communities is talk about weeaboo waifu bullcrap. Let's talk about how the game was designed. Let's talk about, the thought process of the developers. Let's take into consideration what they were trying to make and not what you have made it out to be.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a level of insecurity that spawns this type of terminology, this type of discussion. Everyone feels like they have to differentiate themselves in a way so like two people like the same game, right? You think that would be like a common ground they could find between them, but really it's like, oh, you like this game and I don't like you. Right. And so it can't be that we like the game for the same reasons because I'm better than you. Right. So I have to come up with these reasons why you like the game for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. I like the game for the right reasons. And I'm like, So, well, in general, there were a few points I wanted to bring up though. Like there was one guy who was saying, oh, I'm pretty sure he didn't even watch the whole video, but he was saying like, oh yeah, like, if Japan glorifies failure, then why do samurai commit seppuku to out of failure? And it's like, this is actually a key point. It's like in the language, it's hard for people to understand, but they don't commit seppuku out of failure because they failed. They commit seppuku to preserve their honor in what could be perceived as a failure. Right.
To Westerners.
To a Westerner, it's like you failed and you had to kill yourself.
Now kill yourself. Because in fact, the people who are arguing the whole like, oh, go kill yourself, go jump off a bridge is just like what people do nowadays and like arguing online and things like that. But so you're arguing with somebody that, but when Japanese killed themselves, when somebody told them to kill themselves, it's not the same as when you tell someone to kill themselves today. Yeah. It was completely different. It was actually a really honorable, really high like class thing to do.
It's hard thing to understand. It's weird.
We don't
it's something
get it.
that
We're
I don't.
Not in that.
But
all of his other criticisms, the same poster though. Mm-hmm. And this is the other thing that drives me crazy about internet culture right now. There are entire channels on YouTube dedicated to finding all the things wrong with a movie.
Right.
It's the entire point. I'm gonna look for all the wrong things, and it has bred this like culture of people who are looking for something to criticize when they go into it, rather than experiencing it for what it is, understanding the mind of the person speaking to them, and then forming an opinion about whether they agree or disagree. They're not trying to understand the mind of the creator at all. They're going in looking for something to point out and looking for something wrong with it. This is a terrible, terrible way of interacting with people, but also of forming opinions and criticizing something. Mm-hmm. Because what you do when you do this is you start to take every single sentence and break it down in such a way as if the person's inferring that this applies to everything. Mm-hmm. So he says in his criticism, oh, this is why in modern Japan, they because his criticism
they treat their businesses treat their employees
the way the businesses treat the employees if they fail, or students. Mm-hmm. The stigma around failing in school or whatever, that there are deeply entrenched parts of that culture that obviously very much instill a fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That does not discredit the content in the video because he's not making a statement about every aspect of modern Japan.
Right.
There is this one influence, this one thing that they do. They build shrines to these heroes that failed. And yes,
isn't that interesting?
Lots of cultures do this. It's again, Japan's not the only culture. He didn't say Japan's the only culture that does this. You're looking for something to criticize there. You aren't taking the heart of the message, and it is so frustrating because we could have constructive arguments that lead to insights for the people creating and for the people watching. They can learn from each other. Instead of you going in there seeking to knock somebody down a peg below you because everyone has this insecurity. I've got to make someone feel bad today. Like, why? And then the conversation is always so shallow. It's always just above what we could explore here. I hate it. I'm done talking about it because I can go on forever. We're not moving forward in the way we criticize and the way we talk about things because everyone wants to fight about the surface level bullcrap instead of imagine that this person might be a little more complicated than that. Imagine that they might know something as obvious as what you're pointing out, and maybe they're not inferring everything that you could possibly twist this to be.
Yeah. Which really is where this channel comes in, I feel like. The community, the type of content that we try to create, and the type of feedback we get from you guys is very much bucking that trend, I feel, for the most part. There are trolls that come into the community. There are people that come in and try to disrupt things or just say they hate Final Fantasy VIII 100 times. Like the one guy in the live stream.
He actually went on the Final Fantasy VIII review and said this is not a real Final Fantasy game, it sucks. And there have been people telling him to kill himself. And
well, there you go. Great. Now we've got a wonderful superficial conversation.
But that's one of the... We like talking with you guys when you're chatting with us on the live streams, when you're responding to any of our videos. The overwhelming majority of the community here is very respectful and understanding, open-minded, and willing to see things differently if they find out that maybe they were wrong about something even, right? Or us too. That's a standard we all want to hold ourselves to, right? If we learned something, this is what I thought was one way, it turned out to be another. In fact, I had been planning on doing a video about Japanese games being difficult, and because there are some games that are made easier when they're brought to the West, but it wasn't until just really in that same Reddit comment thread that I found people saying, like, there's data showing that actually that the Japanese players of these games, they don't like the difficulty level. They want it to be easier, and Americans want it to be harder. And so
that's very interesting.
It was interesting. It flipped that whole notion on its head for me, and where I had seen things one way and was anticipating making a video one way, it's like I realized, like, oh, you know what? Like, that's so fascinating, though. I find it interesting when you learn something contrary.
Sure.
You know, so...
And yeah, going along those lines, that is the community that we want to have. And one that I've been trying to build from the very beginning is one where we can come together and not nitpick each other, and not fight with each other about things, but actually listen to what people have to say and explore that from their perspective and try to see it the way that they see it. The reason why I've become this way is because I made videos, the original Final Fantasy reviews, my original Final Fantasy V reviews, where this started, to be honest, where I said this and this. I used to be a very critical person when I was in my early 20s. I remember we went and saw District 9 together, and I was sitting there like, oh, fetch this movie, blah, 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 blah. And I was doing very much the same thing that I'm criticizing now. So I can't be that hard. I rant about it, but I can't be that hard on it because I used to be that way too. It's something you have to...
It's an easy thing to tend to
grow out of.
Right.
You have to grow. You have to make a conscious effort to say, I'm not right about everything. And when I made that Final Fantasy V review, there were so many people who sent me personal messages that were not telling me to kill myself, that were not telling me that I'm a retard or that I'm an idiot. They said, hey, you said this about the game. I'm from this country, and in my culture, this element of this game very much, speaks to me because that's the kind of like the fairy tales I was told when I was growing up. And so that kind of storytelling really resonates with me. And that just completely opened my mind. Like, I was totally disregarding this whole thing because it didn't fit my paradigm. But that doesn't mean it's bad. And there are millions of people around the world who have a different way of looking at it and a valid way of looking at it. And that has completely changed my critical voice since that time to be more inclusive of multiple perspectives and to not say, this is the way it is because this is the way I think. But to say, I think this way. If you think similarly to me, this may be an issue for you. However, I know 5-6 people I talk to regularly who think this way about it. And if you think that way, you may really enjoy this thing. Now I've given you an option as a critic, which side do you fall on? So I'm not going to tell you the game is good or bad. I'm not going to score it, which we've stopped doing.
Right. A lot of people on my Kingdom Hearts review, they're like, "Oh, you should have given this 5 out of 5 Keyblades. Like, you missed the opportunity to give it like a Keyblade score."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I made a 20-minute review. If I was going to boil the whole thing down to just like a score, like 4 out of 5 or 10 out of 20 or whatever, like, I'd be doing it a disservice. Like, we're not IGN. We don't just like give a star number and that's that. Like, we watch the whole. You want to know what I scored this game? Watch a 20-minute review.
Isn't that what Frodo
then
did when he came back
from
from destroying the ring? He came back, he's like, that was about a 4 out of 5 experience.
4 out of 5. Yeah, that one part got a little shaky there.
How did Frodo rate Lord of the Rings? I want to know. He didn't do it.
It's the entire
he wrote part
the entire thing gives you an idea of what the game's about. And I feel it's the responsibility of critics not to self-aggrandize, not to elevate their own opinion. Mm-hmm. You should be providing a service to your audience and saying, this is what's there. And this is how I feel about it, but this is my paradigm.
All right, like if you like this, then you'll like this movie.
Yeah.
If you don't, watch something else.
Make logical comparisons. Give them an idea, the best idea that you can, without spoiling anything. Give them the best idea that you can about what this experience is like, and let them decide if they want it. Not try to persuade them, I really like it, you should play it. Or dissuade them, I really hate it, you shouldn't play it. That's not a service to the viewer. That's elevating your own opinion. And I have come to a place where I think that is the wrong way to use a critical voice.
It's so tricky because what's weird about that is there are people out there who want people to tell them how to think.
Yeah. In fact, I would argue that the most people...
They want someone
people to tell
should I like this or not, instead of formulating their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes significantly more effort.
Way more effort.
Yeah,
and way more time. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the
No, I don't think so. I mean, like, I could go down and address, I guess, stuff point for point, but that's not really the point of it. It's just that, I mean, this type of stuff's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm more okay with it. What I'm less okay with is people throwing around derogatory terms as their argument, not actually providing some hard data. That guy who had he had these reasons, and at least he listed out his reasons. I don't agree with him, and I think he completely missed the point of the video.
And he wasn't derogatory towards you.
He was not, no. And which is honestly why I think he just maybe didn't watch the whole video.
Right.
Because I knew putting up this video that it was going to be. Yeah. I thought for different reasons. You talked
to me about it for
but I know I was pretty sure. I was like, there's going to be people that don't like this. I can see why. I can even look at it. I'm like, I wish I had said this. I say that Wabi Sabi embodies these different Buddhist principles, and one of those is that nothing is perfect. And then the very next sentence, I say the cherry blossom tea bowl embody this aesthetic perfectly. They use the word perfect after saying nothing is perfect. Oh. And not that it's necessarily contradictory, but I kept hearing that, and I was like, oh man, someone's going to pick up on that. Someone's going to,
That's funny.
You watch your own thing enough times, and you start to see all the flaws in it. But you get to a point where it's like, you just got to be done. So, yeah. Anyways, but I still enjoy making those videos, and I think you guys enjoy those videos. And all the other content that we do on the channel, we get really good response from you guys for the most part. And when there's something you want changed, you tell us to change it. Right. Like stuff with the podcast.
And we might do it, and we might not. We might not do it. We might disagree.
Yeah. So no, that was it. That was it for me on the Reddit stuff.
Well, we're basically done here. So
that's this week's episode.
We're done.
This week.
A little longer, but some passionate feelings there. So
let us know what you'd like to see more of from us. What you'd like to see less of. Suggestions for topics. We even if those if they're not in comments on the video, if you message us on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, and say, hey, I'd like to see you guys take on something, that would be really welcome, I think.
Oh, maybe another thing we should mention. I know this is the very end of the podcast, but it's available on SoundCloud also. Like, you don't have to be watching the video, or you don't have to be streaming or whatever. You can just listen to it. And it's on SoundCloud. We should probably say that at the beginning of our episodes. But there's a link for the SoundCloud, and we'll put these every week on SoundCloud as well. So
yes. And you can comment there as well if you want to.
You can give a thumbs down, I think.
All right, guys.
Thanks
for watching.
Later, guys.
Thanks for being beasts. We'll see you later.
Peace.